I'm hoping with my listeners that they can find something within my songs and within my framework of my content that inspires them to achieve greatness. Get up and go out and get it and do what they got to do.
You are now listening to the Lifelong Learning Defined podcast with your host, Jorge Valenzuela.
This is education coach Jorge Valenzuela. Welcome to the Lifelong Learning Defined podcast, where I provide all educators, whether instructional leaders or teachers, tips on how to be their best both personally and professionally. Now let's get into it. We're here today with Walter Tinsley. Walter is an old friend of mine. We went to high school together, y'all. And a lot of people don't know this, but I used to write raps in high school. If you know me, you know that I love rap music. But in high school, I didn't have the talent for it. And at the time, I didn't know how to develop my skills, not just for rap music, but for anything. So I quit. However, Walter was a friend who had a car. And back in 1994, 1993, that was a rarity. He would drive over to my house after school and on the weekends so he can hear me rap. I've always appreciated him. At the time, we were only 16 years old. That's how far we go back. But now Walter is a music artist and he's the CEO of Regiment Records. How are you?
I feel good, brother. Blessed. I'm blessed, extremely blessed, man, and optimistic for the future.
What inspired you to start your journey in hip hop culture and then in a career in rap music?
A love for the art, a love for the music. It became an outlet for me. I approached hip hop as a way of expressing myself, of creative freedom. For me, like I said, it was more of an outlet more than a get out of my life experiences type of thing, you know. I approached it as a fan and just a genuine love for the game.
I was definitely a fan too. I remember hip hop culture really giving me an identity. At the time, and even now, it served as a framework for how I would communicate with you and other friends as well. It was fashion, rap music, sports, lingo. And I can say in our neighborhood back in Quorum, New York, out of Gordon Heights, we had some legends, man. I got to shout out my man, Shaquille Abdul-Rashid, William and Deshaun, the Nappy Head. And these were the guys that would be rapping in the cafeteria. Stefan, I don't know if you remember Stefan. And they'd be rapping in the cafeteria, and we have all these crowds, and everybody would be there. It really gave me a sense of belonging. I really loved it. I didn't understand back then hip hop is culture. Rap music is just one of the expressions of the culture. When did you know that you wanted to be a rap artist?
Seriously, to be a serious hip hop artist? Around the time we met. I think around 10th grade.
I don't think you ever told me that.
Yeah, it was just like coincidence that we happened to meet each other in school around the same time I was getting real serious into hip hop with my craft that I do now. A love for it. Like I said, you know what? I honestly always wrote my little rhymes, but kept them to myself since elementary school. I remember writing my first rhyme, trying to put it together like in second or third grade. Yeah, I was heavily influenced by my older cousins. I'm the oldest brother out of me and my two younger brothers. You kind of look at your cousins in the family, especially when you have a lot of family, as kind of like big brothers or big sisters sometimes. Just the love for that. And, you know, our era is the infancy of hip hop, kind of like, you know what I'm saying?
It's a golden age. It's a golden age. Those early 90s, man.
This is the 80s I'm talking about, though.
Yeah, that's infancy. It's weird to hear you say that because I never remember you ever rapping for me, but I remember you coming over my house. I don't know if you remember this, but you would drive to my house and be like, yo, man, let me hear what you're doing right now. I would rap for you.
I remember your old name. I remember.
Oh, my God. That was a long time ago. That had to be over 30 years ago, man.
About that. A little longer, yeah. 94, 31 years. You had everything in your rhyme books and your notebooks. Back then, way before cell phones, we did everything, logged it in on our pen and pad and our notebooks, man. And that was sacred. And you did everything you could to not lose your rhyme book. You know what I'm saying? Because it's basically exposing yourself to everybody in the world. And before we were driving, when you're riding the bus, that was the most dangerous times to lose your rhyme book.
Oh my gosh.
On the bus, because that's usually when you were rhyming and showing these stuff to your friends and whatnot. So we go that far back.
You want to hear something funny? Shaquille and I in English class, every week we had vocabulary words and we would write a rap about the words. And that's how we would do good on our exams. I was really good in the cafeteria. I was really good amongst my friends. But when I met Biz Marquis, it was me, Shaquille, and Michael Coleman. I remember we all rapped for him. me and Shaquille. When Shaquille rapped, I realized that I'm out of my league here. Not only am I out of my league, but when I rapped to Biz and he just would nod his head, he had a very different expression than when Shaquille rapped. That taught me a lesson that maybe this is not for me. And then I remember watching Onyx on Yo MTV Raps and thinking, wow, this is crazy. Rap is really evolving. And then shortly after that, rap really changed because then you got into Nas, Biggie, Tupac. I think Tupac was always there, but what he evolved into those Death Row days, and then eventually Jay-Z, and then the game completely changed. How did you keep up with all those changes?
I evolved with it. I grew with it. I studied it. I being such a fan of the culture, of the art, I just kept trying to level up. It's like the more you do anything, you're going to get better at it. I was an insecure dude that hid behind my rhymes a little bit and my craft. I just naturally got better. I was part of a group too. You mentioned Will and Deshaun, the Nappy Heads. They became Ghostland with me in Boise and the rest of our crew, but we were the musical front of our clique at the time in Gordon Heights. They referred to Long Island and Gordon Heights as Ghostland, being from the Bronx, that because when they came out here, to them, there wasn't not much out here when they moved out here, like when they was in middle school and stuff, junior high. So neither here nor there. I had friendly competition within my own group, and we pushed each other. Then my brother came along, my younger brother Bogart came along behind me. He started to evolve real quick too, and living in the same house and being such fans and updating each other on new music and stuff like that. We pushed each other without even noticing it. And that friendly competition and rhyming in Cyphers and stuff like that, it helped me to evolve. And as I heard artists evolve in their journey and their career, my favorite artists, the ones I looked up to like Nas, Mobb Deep and stuff that I was inspired by, I started to evolve too, because you notice a change in the times and stuff. What happened in the beginning was I kind of rapped like and came across with the views of the people I looked up to. But as I began to progress in my own journey, it became to be my own voice more, my own complete expression of where I was from and how I came up. And I think we go through that sometimes. Some people do, maybe some people don't, but I definitely did. I looked up to certain artists. I wasn't one of those rappers that was like, oh man, I didn't listen to other people and I just really listened to myself. Nah, I wasn't like that, man. I wasn't that self-contained. I was a fan of the game and I looked up to certain individuals and I took little bits and pieces or whatever and fused it into what I do now.
One of the things we tell aspiring authors and even PhD students, look at the work of someone that has done something similar to what you've done, or an author that you really like. Not that you mimic what they're doing, but you see the way that they're doing it and you integrate that into your own style as you're developing your own style. If you're watching this on YouTube or listening on Spotify or iTunes, please hit the subscribe button. Please hit the like button and share this episode with your family, friends, and colleagues who are interested in self-improvement through lifelong learning. And now for a word from one of our sponsors.
Education is changing. Classrooms look different, and the future demands that our students be equipped for whatever comes their way. Educators play a huge role in helping prepare students for their futures. Defined Learning is a K-12 standards-aligned PBL solution that provides high-quality cross-curricular performance tasks across content areas such as ELA, math, science, social studies, computer science, and more. The hands-on projects are based on real-world situations and allow students to apply their learning. Education is changing. Give students the tools and experiences to recognize their futures and make an incredible impact on the world. Defined, the authority on applied learning.
We had the pleasure of listening to George this morning on project-based learning, and he shared his story that his aunt encouraged him to go into education. And she was absolutely right. He is so talented at sharing information in a way that is easy to digest and is inspiring to go back and actually implement and make change.
So my takeaway is that Mr. Valenzuela was very inspiring. He was very motivational and helped me to think about a new way of getting my teachers excited.
When I set out to do a workshop, my key deliverable is energy. And this momentum is used to make connections, inspire, educate, and ultimately transform the audience, so that they're compelled to take that same energy back to their schools and communities. And although we have fun, we tackle the hard topics of today, like educational policy, pedagogy for improving curriculum and instruction, and empowering today's students by connecting our work to the needs of the workforce. So please consider Lifelong Learning Defined for your next keynote, workshop, or conference, and overall instructional and educational coaching needs. My name is George, and I hope to connect with you soon.
We would love to have him come and do some work with us and help us be a little more successful and help our students to be more successful.
I move around a lot of schools, and we're seeing a huge disconnect. A lot of teachers that have come from non-traditional pathways, especially in the past few years. And so just interactions, expectations is really the first step. All of my teachers, raise your right hand, and please repeat after me. I promise that I will speak positivity into my students. All of my administrators, all my directors, all my principals, all my coordinators, raise your hands, please, your right hand, and repeat after me. I promise that I will speak positivity into my faculty and staff. Thank you.
Yes.
I have to give a shout out to William and Deshawn, the Nappy Heads. Those guys in high school could set a party off. The way that they fed off each other, it was amazing. And then Shaquille back in those days, I just had lunch with his son, and I told him, your dad was a legend. He was a living legend in high school. And the guy was only 15 years old. I do want to say one thing, though. When we got into 94, 95, I would have to say East Coast rap really changed, really evolved. When we knew each other, I remember liking CL Smooth, Leaders of the New School, Busta Rhymes, A Tribe Called Quest. I think they call it backpack rappers. But it really evolved into something where it wasn't as positive anymore. It was more about street hustling. And now what we have now is just completely different. How did those shifts in the music, in your opinion, inspire the culture?
It went from when we were just talking about around the time we met in 93, it was at the very end of the conscious era of rap being politically conscious, street conscious amongst the people. Around 94, you mentioned Nas, Biggie, I guess the wordplay got a little more dense, and complex, and vivid, and descriptive, and more real life reality. There was reality rap before to degrees. We had Cool G Rap.
NWA, Cool G Rap.
Yeah,
yep.
yeah. And I know you guys were heavily influenced by NWA, even being from the East Coast. I remember you guys listening to Eazy-E, Jimmy Hill. I remember Jimmy Hill.
No, right. Oh, big shout out to Jimmy Hill. I'm still friends with the guy on Instagram. Shaquille was the one who said to me, I like Ice Cube too, but you got to listen to Q-Tip, De La Soul, and you have to hear the wordplay, and you have to hear the themes and the rhymes and the positivity, then compare the two, and then make a decision about who you want to be as an artist, who you want to be as a person. I really like that. I followed that until I heard Jay Streets is Watching, Volume 1. And I saw that dude just in the park, New York Giants jersey, dropping Where I'm From. It completely transformed how I looked at everything around me. I just began to hustle school books, hustle and grind and work hard, because I realized that to achieve that level of not just wordplay, the way the guy was walking and talking and the way that he put his hands, I knew that all that was rehearsed. It was almost like watching Michael Jackson in his day, right? You knew that this guy really put in the hours. What are your thoughts on that?
It's necessary. What you're talking about as far as Jay, he has a very conversational way of rhyming that makes you feel, even if you're in a crowd, he's talking to just you. And that's what kind of made Jay really dope to me. He was inspiring that even if it was a negative perspective of hustling, like you said, you can relate that to anything positive with hustling, with whatever you're hustling, whether you're hustling to study for a test, for a degree, whether you're hustling, time at work, whatever you're hustling that's positive to get you to the next level that you're trying to achieve. Hove made you feel like you can go that route, that he made you inspired to get off your ass and do what you got to do. Pardon, I'm sorry. To
It's
get
all
up.
good, brother.
Yeah, I didn't know what I could say and what I couldn't.
No,
Yeah,
it's
that's
all
pretty
good.
much that. I'm hoping with my listeners that they can find something within my songs and within my framework of my content that inspires them to achieve greatness and get up and go out and get it and do what they got to do. Same type of thing.
We mentioned that you are the CEO of Regiment Records. You also mentioned that you work with other artists. What do you look for in a collaborator?
When I collaborate with somebody, what I look for now is different than what I looked for earlier in my career. I'm looking for now is somebody that has the energy that suits the song, the vibe that suits the song, that has the dedication to push the song to make it achieve the listeners that it deserves. When you make dope content, you don't want to sit on it. When you have a feature, the song is basically your song and featuring the other person, but it helps to have cross promotion when you're both getting down on it. And when it's time to do the visual, you want that person available for them to do the video. So you're not just, in there by yourself. Long story short, what I look for with somebody is the follow through, the dedication. And that's what I look for in my artists too. I mean, like, you won't succeed. You can have all the talent in the world, but if you don't have the follow through and the grind and the conviction and the motivation to connect point A to point B to point C and the execution, it's not going to get done right. And sometimes now I'd rather not have a feature with somebody outside of my camp if they don't have that of what I'm looking for, because I want the song to get the full exposure that it deserves.
Walter, I have to tell you, man, you reach out to me from time to time and you always say to me, I'm proud of you. And I have to say today, I'm proud of you. And I've been proud of you, dog. Watching all your videos and just watching everything you're doing and hearing you talk right now. You are an amazing artist, brother. You're an amazing man. You're an amazing husband, father, all of those things. I just wanted you to know that. I had to give you your flowers.
Thank you. Thank you, brother. Thank you. Respect, brother. Likewise, man. And it's beautiful to see you doing your thing out here, man. This podcast and how you're just blossoming into this entrepreneurial thing you're doing, man. It's just great, man. It's good to see you healthy and positive, man, and strong.
I appreciate that. And now for a word from one of our sponsors. If you're a STEM and PBL teacher like me, you're always on the lookout for new project ideas and resources. You know George does PBL, and I'm telling you, look no further than Smart Lab. Smart Lab really has a fresh take on STEM and PBL. I'm proud to be a partner, and they sponsor the podcast. But just don't take my word for it. Check out what other educators are saying about Smart Lab.
When students enter into Smart Lab, they are allowed to think outside of traditional norms.
It gives them a lot of agency. They feel empowered and important. I think that's one of the biggest benefits of the Smart Lab environment and the way the project process is set up.
Smart Lab becomes this place where they can do those things and have the time and space to communicate better and even deal with social emotional stuff. Like they're having a bad day, a Smart Lab's a place where we can change the pace of what they're learning to match their mental needs for the day. And that comes back tenfold later on when they want to be there and they want to learn and they want to do stuff and they feel safe and they feel like they can get the things they need.
That's one of the big benefits of being in more of a collaborative environment is it makes you have to work. It makes you have to be accountable.
Please look in this episode's show notes for a link to connect with Smart Lab. Walter, what role does your community and background play in your music?
That's interesting. My background is different than a lot of rappers. I said this before. I listen to a little bit of everything. I grew up on both sides of the tracks. I grew up in a Black community, one side of my family. My grandmother was more in a mixed community, more Caucasian, on the other side of corn. Having that kind of multicultural mix of influences in my family and stuff like that, I really didn't see color like that until I was in junior high, when I started hanging with Scrooge and Nettles, Will and Deshawn and stuff like that. I had little instances and whatnot, but the way I was brought up, my grandmother was an entrepreneur and she had white employees. I was always multicultural in my approach. Music was just universal. Music is just music to me. So I listened to a little bit of everything. So being in the Heights and then growing up in the beginning of hip hop, while it was just blossoming and growing, of course, I was heavily influenced by hip hop because hip hop was just more than just music. It was graffiti. It affected the way our fashion, the way we dressed, the way we expressed ourselves and carried ourselves. We grew up in the era of We had the first hip hop movies. We had Breaking. We had
Beat
Beat
Street.
Street. Crush.
Who's the man? Who's the man?
This stuff helped catapult. I remember the 80s vividly, man. This stuff catapulted the culture. It made people want to get involved, even people of other races. So hip hop got really big and just grew its own identity outside of the other genres of music. So naturally, I wanted to be involved. I just love music. I got to be part of it somehow. I listen to other musics. I listen to a lot of rock music, classic rock music, even heavy metal and stuff like that. And a lot of rappers wouldn't tell you that, but I do. I play drums, and I have a lot of influences, and I fuse it all together with what I do without making it sound like I'm deliberately trying to or purposely trying to make a hip hop rock blend or whatever the song that I'm creating at the time feels like. That's the vibe I go for. I'm not trying to make my own genre of music per se or whatever. I just have multi-influences, man, and I'm not afraid to express them when I'm in my creative mode. Where I'm from influenced me in that way. The hustle definitely influenced me as far as with hip hop. And we grew up around people in school that were like tremendous artists, whether they blew big or not. When they were in the Commons or the Cafeteria,
we talked about it.
Skill, and then Will and Dayshawn ended up being my mentors. Me and Boise used to meet after school. He was my rhyme partner. I was part of a group. We were a 2-man team. Back then, he was part of another group of a clique, the Nappy Heads. He was their dancer. This is back when rappers still had dances. Fast forward or whatever, Boise was like, yo, we need to bring our rhymes to Will and Dayshawn, see what they think. And this is what nurtured me, pushed me further. They heard my rhymes. I swear, after like 2 weeks, I think Will went up to me. That's my brother we know as Nettles, but Will went up to me and was like, we got a show. I think it was at St. John's, man, in Queens.
Wow.
And I was like, damn, I've only been rapping like a month, bro. Like, seriously, I was rapping. And me and Boise was writing our little rhymes, combining them as songs. I had a verse, he had a verse. We were like, all right, maybe we can make this a song. And then come up with a hook, a chorus for it and whatnot. So we performed at St. John's, and then we became a collective, and they mentored me. And as that came along, my confidence grew. When the cats you mentioned would rhyme, how they commanded the audience, the crowd, and how people responded to them, I had to possess that. I had to have it. I had to have that interaction with people. I always wanted to be a performer, and I always wanted to do music and make that connection with people. I couldn't stop until I did it. I always wrote. It's interesting to me you said that you don't remember me rhyming back to you, because I definitely always had the notebooks in the stash, man. Over time, our group dissolved, and they went in different directions. We were still clique, but they went back to the Bronx. I pursued my life, and I had a little sit down with myself. I said, are you just rhyming because you're in a group and you can be behind other people? You can hide behind other people in the mix? Or do you want to be an artist on your own, and do you stand out on your own? That was around 1999, 98, and that's when my journey really began.
I do want to piggyback off commanding the crowd, having people just really go crazy. As we all know, Shaquille had that on lock. But the first time that I ever saw someone in the cafeteria really rip it in a way where the girls and everybody jumped up and everybody's screaming was Stefan. If you remember, Stefan and Dakika used to dance for all of us. They were the dancers in the background. But Stefan started freestyling and he started rapping, and he got nice. When he got nice, he was the first one I actually saw stand up. He wouldn't sit down and rap. He would stand up. And everybody would be around him. His eyes were like bloodshot red when he had his beanie. All of that added to his persona. When he started rapping, he really commanded the room. The thing that I'll say about that time and my experience rapping in those days with our community of friends, we were competitive, but we didn't tear each other down. There was no real disrespect that I remember between any of us. Everyone genuinely supported each other. But as we all know, rap is very competitive. Battling is part of the culture. What are your thoughts on current events, on the current way rappers battle today? Because it definitely has changed.
Back when Nas and Jay went at each other, when Jay went at Nas like in 2000, it was pre-internet. Somebody made a diss. It usually was a couple of sneak disses that blossomed into a full diss later. That artist gave the other individual time to respond. Now with the internet, they want a play-by-play thing of what you're thinking before you even create the diss. You know what I'm saying? And then other tactics get involved, like making memes of the person and other things outside of the actual music and content, because it becomes a slugfest of slinging mud at each other back and forth, depending on how you go about it. And it's like the fans don't even want to wait for you to compose the song or a response. They want an automatic response. I feel like people battling in hip hop and rap is going to be the game. And I mean, as far as my understanding of the culture and the art form, it's always been like that. And it's a necessary component to hip hop to sharpen your sword. Sometimes if you're going to have a disagreement with another individual or not like how they present themselves or whatever, you speak on it, then y'all face off, because it's a war of words. And that's what hip hop is built on. And as long as it can stay like that, it doesn't get over the top personal. I think that's what happened too. It became okay to get over the top personal with people and stuff like that. That kind of happened with Jay too, with Prodigy, and then back in the day with him taking the pictures of him as a kid with the Michael Jackson jacket and stuff like that.
Yeah, that was crazy. You know, that was crazy.
It can get real disrespectful.
And that's one aspect of it where you got accusations and dudes now doing lawsuits and all these different things that we never saw in the culture before. I will say that rap has become where it's almost like warfare. I know this, and I'm not talking about rap music, but just in general, being a husband, being a father of 2 young adults, you choose your battles wisely. I know my wife, I know her well. When I'm about to choose a battle, I ask myself, is this a battle that I can really win? And if I can't, I just fall back. I say what I have to say, but I try to be respectful. I've noticed that now it's almost like warfare where you can lose your career over a battle or your stock will significantly decrease. I think that
it was like that back in the day though too.
Well, that's true, because Ja Rule did have to chill for a while.
Battle can change the trajectory of your career.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't think about that. That's a great point, brother. Walter, what advice do you have for younger rappers, younger talent looking up to you who are aspiring to also be where you're at now?
Be your biggest source of motivation. Be your biggest inspiration, bro. You got to really root for yourself before you get any fans, 2 or 3. Some people we touched upon, other rappers, beginning rappers on their journey, early MCs we looked up to, they automatically had an audience. Whether you automatically have an audience or not, don't stop. Focus on the fans. Focus on a few people that are paying attention to what you do, and show them love, show them respect, show them good content, reliable content, and stay consistent. Consistency is key. And with that consistency, you'll level up, because if you're really passionate about what you do, you won't want to be on the same level of success. You'll want to keep climbing. And that's in your presentation. That's in your musical content of how you rhyme and how you present it, and the clarity in your visuals, how you market yourself. As you become more secure as an artist of who you are and how you want to be presented to the world, you'll start knocking down walls and barriers, man. There's times that you got to keep going into the walls, man, until you eventually sometimes just knock them down, man. It's not for the faint of heart. This stuff takes finance. It takes dedication. It takes strategy. You have to pre-plan on what you want to do, man, or else you'll be just going in the same circles and doing the same thing for the same listeners all the time. I never been about that. One thing I started Regiment Records for, I was inspired by Jay, because back then I had heard he say like, oh, we didn't want to wait for no record deal. Certain other artists, they came in the game in their late 20s, and they did the route of trying to like get signed or see what A&R is going to feel me or whatever. Over time, I was like, you know what? I don't want to wait. I want to give myself my own platform. Over time, I was just like, yo, I got to legalize that platform. To make monetization, I got to trademark my logo. I got to own this stuff. I can't just keep shouting it out year in and year out, repping it. All right, I'm a brand, but now I got to make the brand official. I want to achieve in that this past summer, now that I've got to this point now that we're a real company and we're ready to go, and I got my artists under the umbrella now. Now I just really want to do right by my artists, put the best content out to the world with the best presentation possible. So I'm real excited about that, man.
I love everything you're saying.
Thank you.
As an education consultant, I'm a speaker, but I'm also an entrepreneur. A lot of people don't know when they start is that you have your personal brand, but then you have your marketplace branding. So your personal brand is what people think of you when they hear you, when they see you. And everyone has a personal brand, whether they know it or not. So it's important with the internet and with social media that we get in front of our own personal brand. But our marketplace branding is really important. The story that we're promoting about us and our work. Think of 50 Cent. Not only was it music, his story was being promoted. A lot of people don't realize for some artists, especially artists, entrepreneurs that are creating something, a lot of them who don't have the right examples in front of them or the right mentors, it takes years. A lot of people don't know this, but Coke sold 25 bottles in the first year. It's taken me about 10 years now to really be able to package and market and promote all of my gifts in a nice way so that the audience can, number one, understand how to find me, what I do, and then a seamless process for how to book me. With that said, let's put this in the universe. Walter, how can promoters all over the world find you so they can book you for their event?
I'm heavy on my Instagram. It's at Ghostland Grand. Ghostland is the name of my crew and my clique that I touched on earlier. So that's usually my heading for everything. But my stage name is Grand. At Ghostland Grand for Instagram. And my email is Ghostland Grand. And my YouTube, Ghostland Grand again. That's how you can find me.
That's it for this episode. Until next time, this is the Lifelong Learning Defined podcast.
Whether you're a teacher or administrator, you lead by walking alongside your students and your staff. You teach them what to do, you model for them. Let's say you're in a situation where you don't know what to do and you bring in a coach or a resource, you learn alongside them. Okay? Does that make sense? Okay. Now, the second thing is this. Give your people feedback, not pushback. Whoever you push back on, whether physically or verbally, they're going to do it right back immediately. And if they're intimidated by our position, our status, they're going to do it behind our backs and ruin our programs. My guy. I want to leave you on this note. Trajectories can be changed. When I was in 10th grade, here's a snapshot of who I was in 10th grade. There's a rapper named Rakim. I'm not sure if you guys know about Rakim, but he used to say, it's not where you're from, it's where you at. And I played that on my headphones at 16 years old every day until I believed it. And I'm showing you this because I'm seeing versions of this throughout American schools. This is your reality of what you have to face. If I can do it, any kid can do it, but they have to work hard. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Lifelong Learning Defined podcast with Jorge Valenzuela.